The fact that the two galaxies, the Milky Way and Andromeda, will collide with each other in about 5 billion years doesn't excite the minds of ordinary people or shock them. As it turns out, that's a mistake. According to recent materials from the Astrophysical Journal, this won't happen in billions of years. It's already happening. What consequences could this have for our planet, and what will happen to humanity? To be continued. The Andromeda Galaxy, also known as M31, appears as a huge spiral containing about 1 trillion different stars. It is separated from the Milky Way, which contains our system, by about 2.5 million light years. This is a relatively small distance. That's why being on the western side of the star Henry Draper 4727, the galaxy can be seen with the naked eye. We know galaxy collisions are happening slowly but surely. Amigo informed us about this. It was a map showing that ionized gas is being absorbed in Andromeda. The Hubble telescope is also working there. Its task is to study the cosmic space around Andromeda. Scientists believe that this project covers the greatest number of aspects that help us learn more about galaxies. Special attention is given to the galactic halo, the shell that surrounds galaxies. It is mainly composed of scattered stars, gas, and dust. Hubble's work helped scientists map out a huge galactic halo around Andromeda on cosmic charts. They were surprised to find that the barely noticeable diffuse plasma itself stretched for 1.3 million light years, thus covering almost 50% of the distance to the Milky Way. The conclusion from this is that the halos of Andromeda and our galaxy are already touching. It is also worth noting that in such a structure there are 2 separate gas shells. They contain the fuel that will be used in the formation of new stars. There you can also find traces of processes that took place in the past. The inner shell structure was more complex than expected than the outer one. It is possible that such differences formed because supernova activity was detected in the galaxy's disk, and its consequences simply did not reach the outer shell. One of the consequences of this activity is a high concentration of heavy elements in the gas shell. They are formed inside stars and then released and sent into space. Also in the Amigo project, the glow of more than 40 quasars was studied. These are extragalactic objects considered to be some of the brightest cosmic bodies, which are characterized by redshift in the center. Quasars are far from Andromeda, and their powerful glow makes it possible to study these areas more thoroughly. The light emitted by quasars is absorbed by the halo of Andromeda. The amount of absorbed glow is uneven and depends on the area. In this case, it is most optimal to study the shells using external sources because, for example, some parts of the Andromeda shell consist mainly of ionized and rarefied gas whose radiation is not easy to detect. The ultraviolet glow coming from quasars was studied using the additional functionality of the Hubble telescope, namely its spectrograph. From Earth, we wouldn't be able to track this process because, as is known, ultraviolet light is absorbed by the atmosphere as it approaches our planet. The Hubble spectrograph, in turn, was able to detect ionized gases formed from oxygen, carbon, and silicon. Radiation causes atoms to lose electrons, resulting in ionization. Ionized gas can be called cosmic plasma, which is the 4th state of matter. We can't know the exact properties of our own galaxy's halo, but it is generally believed that the halos of Andromeda and the Milky Way are similar. Their sizes and external characteristics largely coincide. The fact that a collision and subsequent merger of the galaxies will happen soon is known thanks to observations of their movements. That is, in about 5 million years, we will have a new galaxy formed from the merger of Andromeda and the Milky Way. The collision has already begun, though not of the galaxies themselves, but of their halos. Right now, we don't feel any changes because of this, but in the future, it will seriously affect the structure and appearance of the Milky Way. Moreover, similar processes will occur not only with these two galaxies. For example, the Triangulum Galaxy, which is also known as M33, is moving at a speed of 179 kilometers per second and is gradually reducing its distance from our galaxy. Yes, most likely, M33 will not merge with the Milky Way. If we take into account the speed at which our galaxy is moving, the distance to the Triangulum Galaxy is decreasing by 24 kilometers per second. However, a collision may occur. Moreover, there is a chance, although not a high one, that this will happen before the full collision between the Milky Way and Andromeda. There is also a suggestion that the Triangulum Galaxy may become a satellite of the newly formed galaxy, but later, over time, it will still become a part of it. The Triangulum Galaxy is probably a satellite of Andromeda and has likely already completed an orbit around it. The situation happening with the Milky Way and Andromeda is far from unique. In fact, it's quite the opposite. In space, this is a common occurrence. Scientists very often record similar cases using ground-based research instruments. Some galaxies have not merged into a single entity. After the collision, they simply passed through each other and continued on their way. This happens because the distance between stars within galaxies is quite large. So when they collide, the stars simply don't interact with each other in any way. The situation with Andromeda and the Milky Way is a bit different. Here, the collision will still affect the stars because of their large number. Andromeda has about 1 trillion stars, while the Milky Way has 300 billion. The collision will contribute to the formation of a new galactic center and will cause the stars to shift to different orbits. Most likely the position of the Sun and its planets will change and they will move to a new region. So our planetary system might acquire a completely new location. The likelihood that the merger of the galaxies will be destructive for our solar system is extremely low. However, our view of the sky will change dramatically. In about 3 billion years, we will be able to see the Andromeda Nebula and the brightest celestial bodies around it from Earth without any instruments. This will be one of the results of the convergence. We have found out what changes might happen inside the galaxies, but how will they change externally? Andromeda and the Milky Way are quite similar in many ways. If a small galaxy collides with a large one, the latter simply absorbs the former without any noticeable consequences. In our case, the situation is different. The collision leads to changes in the structure. Some of the stars will be absorbed by supermassive black holes, while others will end up outside the galaxy altogether. Moreover, the new galaxy will have a classic spherical shape, not a spiral one as before. During the formation of this new galaxy, for some time, more stars will be born. It is also worth noting that during such galactic collisions, the aging process of galaxies accelerates. The reason for this is that the gases there turn into stars. Due to the excessive number of stars, the fuel is rapidly depleted. Elliptical galaxies mainly contain red glowing stars. That's because young stars explode like supernovae when they collide. Orbital energy is generated as black holes merge into one. This energy will be transferred to the stars, which will then move to higher orbits. When the distance between two black holes decreases, the gas from them can create a bright quasar. Moreover, some stars may be thrown very far from the main mass of cosmic bodies, causing such systems to exist separately. Interestingly, our planetary system could turn out to be one of them. The chance of something bad happening to us is very low. The streams of intergalactic radiation will be held back by the Sun's magnetosphere. As a result, we will find ourselves on the edge of a new galaxy, and there will be a completely different sky above our heads. In any case, by the time the galaxies merge, we will be facing a much more important problem, namely the transformation of the Sun into a red dwarf, which will happen in about 5 to 6 billion years. But that's a completely different story. Thanks to modern technology, we have been able to learn about such a phenomenon as the collision of galaxies. This is an amazing process that leads to many transformations in planetary systems. Some galaxies barely touch each other, while others become one. It is now clear that the Milky Way is in for many changes, and in millions of years, the view of the starry sky will be completely different. If you ask me which planet in the solar system is most similar to Earth, I will answer without hesitation: Venus. It's truly an amazing place. The gravity on its surface and its overall mass are very similar to our planet. However, there is one significant difference that prevents us from colonizing it. Earth has all the conditions necessary for the peaceful development of life. On Venus, however, it's exactly the opposite. The temperatures there are so high that no living organism could possibly survive. On top of that, there are acid rains and atmospheric pressure 93 times greater than on Earth. In order to take even a few pictures of Venus's surface, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics launched probes in the 1970s that were only meant for a one-way trip. They couldn't return to Earth. Now, science has advanced much further, and we can get more information about what happened on this planet in the past. At the moment, the surface of Venus is heated to such high temperatures that even zinc would melt. Earlier, the climate here was more humid and mild, and even suitable for life. So why did everything change? The reason was a powerful eruption of volcanoes all over the surface. As a result, the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere increased sharply, and accordingly, the surface began to heat up. Now, not a trace remains of the former Venus. Now, scientists must gather more information about this planet's past. And indeed, there are many interesting points. For example, whether there was once a habitable ocean there. What caused the loss of the magnetic field? Why does Venus rotate slowly compared to Earth? What was the planet's atmosphere made of in its early stages? And why is the speed of the atmosphere's rotation higher than that of Venus itself? Will there be more volcanic eruptions? As you can see, there are many things we'd like to find out. And that's exactly what the scientific community is working on right now. In the last century, the Soviet Union aimed for first place in Venus exploration, but things didn't go as planned. Their probes failed to land on the planet's surface. Out of 14 attempts, only 9 were successful. The last one to visit was the Vega 2 lander. Its direct mission lasted almost an hour. During that time, it collected soil samples from the surface. After the probe sent the collected data to Earth, nothing more was heard from it. You can't just send a research probe to Venus. You'll immediately run into a lot of problems. Since the temperatures there are high, exceeding 400 degrees Celsius, the probe must be able to withstand them. As soon as the lander touches down on the surface, the efficiency of the solar panels, which such probes are usually equipped with, will decrease. This occurs due to the atmosphere's high density, which scatters and weakens light near the surface. To be continued. If we're talking about a panel with the standard 3 junctions, it produces 550 watts per square meter outside the atmosphere. At an altitude of 10 kilometers, the solar panel will already be producing 375 watts. If the device has already landed on Venus itself, it will get a negligible 8.7 watts. In this scenario, the device won't be able to start working properly. In addition, corrosion could also be an obstacle. In the atmospheric layer, sulfur reacts with some metals, for example copper. As a result, sulfides are formed. Stainless steel is needed for the equipment. For instance, SpaceX rockets are currently made of it. But why did we even need to land on such a complicated planet? In 2013, work was set to begin on the Russian spacecraft Venera D mission, aiming in part to search for life on Venus. Later, this mission was postponed to 2026. It is currently unclear whether this project will ever be implemented at all. It was planned that 2 spacecraft would be involved. The first orbital probe will go to Venus. It will operate only in the upper layers of the atmosphere to gather more information about the greenhouse effect and how the solar wind affects the atmosphere. Probably 2 aerostats may be added to the orbital probe to study the lower part of the atmosphere. A lander also needs to be developed for the Venera D project. Its tasks will include studying both the atmosphere and the surface of Venus. This way, more information can be obtained about how one system affects the other. There were assumptions that the operating time of the module, which is equipped with high-temperature electronics, would reach about 30 days. However, achieving this requires a significant budget increase. National Aeronautics and Space Administration became interested in Venera D and decided to participate in this project 5 years ago as well. The space agency also planned to explore Venus and intended to send its own rover along with the orbital probe and lander to collect data from the surface. Still, the question remains open. What needs to be done for the spacecraft to withstand the high temperatures on Venus? The first option that comes to mind is to install a special system on the spacecraft that would lower the temperature. In this mission, they intend to use liquefied gas. This way, the module will be able to stay on the surface for 1 Earth day. Another option could be a radioisotope thermoelectric generator. New Horizons and Curiosity are already using this kind of system. In the latter, such generators are used to increase the temperature of the spacecraft. But in our case, it's the opposite. Is it possible to get rid of most of the complications and create a spacecraft that could perform its mission without a continuously operating cooling system? National Aeronautics and Space Administration started developing a small long-lived station called LLISSE. The mass of this spacecraft is about 10 kilograms. This probe will be able to remain on Venus for 50% of a Venusian day, which is 60 Earth days. The spacecraft will descend to the surface at a time that allows it to catch the onset of night. During this time, the probe will be able to determine the direction and speed of the local wind, what chemical substances make up the atmosphere, and record how dynamically sunlight reaches the surface. Each part of the probe is designed in such a way that the spacecraft does not repeat the fate of the Soviet probe, which was launched in 1966 and was able to operate on Venus for only a few hours. There is also an option to attach the module to the payload of the aerostat. It will simply need to get rid of this payload by dropping it down onto the desired area. In addition, a special thermal protection shield can also be used, which will ensure longer operation for up to 120 days. Another option is to use wind as a source of energy. Its advantage is that it is renewable. To achieve the set goals for a comprehensive study of Venus, it is necessary to use developments in the field of high-temperature electronics. National Aeronautics and Space Administration currently has developments of special chips. They are made of silicon carbide and provide several thousand hours of operation at a temperature of 500 degrees Celsius. In experiments, these circuits functioned effectively for over 20 days. The size of this device is small, because of which, unfortunately, it is impossible to attach a camera to it. The module can go on its mission not only aboard Venera D, but also on any other spacecraft. These options are not the only ones. There are still plenty of ideas on how to effectively explore Venus. It is possible to do without devices that are highly sensitive to temperature. Based on this principle, the mechanical rover ARI is being developed at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Its design allows it to easily overcome all possible obstacles on the surface of Venus. The energy source will be the wind, so the device's operating time will reach up to 1 year. The energy will be stored in special coil springs, which are more resistant to temperature fluctuations. Tracked all-terrain vehicles were developed for the movement of the device, similar to tanks. There remains only one question. If this rover doesn't have any electronics, then how will information be transmitted to Earth? It is proposed to attach a special screen to the device, which will reflect signals sent from the orbital module. This allows the station to receive Morse code signals from the rover. Another option considered was to create a device that would be completely metallic, but scientists concluded that the device would combine electronics and mechanics. Venus, although a difficult planet to study, has long fascinated the minds of the global space community. The problems that scientists may face when studying Venus are not so easy to solve, but sooner or later we will definitely come to the optimal solution. According to official data, from 1,423 to 1,493 three ships with a crew of 90 people discovered a new land that changed the course of all human history. That's how America was discovered. At that time, landing on a new continent was as shocking as a space discovery, and the first colonizers felt about the same as the astronauts who were the first to set foot on the surface of the moon. Today, in the 21st century, we expect a similar experience on Mars. Plans for its colonization no longer seem like a chapter from science fiction. However, let's take a look at how humanity has changed its attitude toward the red planet throughout its history. What is the likelihood that life once existed on Mars, and how did this assumption arise? Should we believe in conspiracy theories? And what is the strange formation on Mars that looks like a human face on Mars? This planet holds the record for the number of mentions in fiction. Just think about how many science fiction books have been written about this planet. And it's not only modern writers who have been interested in Mars. Even in ancient times, this red dot in the sky fascinated people. Their imagination would run wild, and they kept coming up with new theories about what this distant, mysterious planet was like. In ancient times, people were especially interested in why this dot was red. They often associated it with fire or blood. In ancient Babylon, the planet was considered a symbol of the god of fire and war, Nergal. The Greeks held a similar view, associating Mars with their god of war, Ares. The planet got its name from the Roman god of war, Mars. Many aspects of Roman mythology were adopted from Greek mythology. After Rome fell, most celestial object names stayed the same. At certain periods in history, the red dot was forgotten, so it became not a bloody symbol, but just an ordinary, uninteresting planet. Whether it was even a planet, no one knew the exact answer back then. The 17th century was marked by the appearance of the first telescope, and people were able to learn much more about what had been above their heads all this time. They managed to observe Mars from a closer distance, and it no longer seemed as mystical as it did before. Over time, technology became more advanced, and we gained a clearer understanding of what Mars really is. People learned about the speed of its rotation around its axis and around the sun, what elements make up its atmosphere, what its terrain is like, what moons it has, and so on. Of course, we didn't find any traces of extraterrestrial civilization on Mars, but as you can guess, that didn't stop writers and science fiction authors. In 1877, the first detailed map of Mars appeared. It was made by the Italian astronomer Giovanni Schiaparelli. What's on this map? We see seas and land as well as interconnected canals. Schiaparelli believed that such features appeared naturally without anyone's intervention. But that didn't stop conspiracy theorists and people who like to fantasize. More and more theories started to appear, claiming that this was not just a coincidence and that someone from outside was definitely involved. An unclear wording caused a misunderstanding here. The astronomer used words in his work that are applied to both man-made and natural objects. In English, different words are used for these concepts. Because of this, confusion arose, which led to rumors that someone lives on Mars. Some even claimed that they had found that very extraterrestrial civilization. Among them was Percival. Lowell was a mathematician, writer, entrepreneur, and a specialist in designing plant systems on Mars. For more than 15 years, Lowell was fascinated and obsessed with the red planet. That's why he endlessly studied the map of Mars, which later resulted in him writing 3 books. Lowell describes the red planet's inhabitants as nearing extinction, but they desperately try to survive using canal networks. People of the 19th century really liked this version. Those times were marked by the Industrial Revolution and the emergence of large-scale construction projects. Amid such changes, people were very attracted to the idea that similar processes could be happening on Mars as well. The scientific community did not share the public's enthusiasm and doubted the truth of such theories. In some places on the surface of Mars, darkening could be observed, but it was impossible to see the canal system that Lowell insisted on. The only way was to add a bit of imagination, which is exactly what the astronomer, mathematician, entrepreneur did. We have already mentioned that such attention to Mars left a significant mark on popular culture, including literature. For example, the famous science fiction writer Herbert Wells revived fantasies about extraterrestrial civilizations in his work The War of the Worlds, although behind the fantastic plots lies a condemnation of real trends of colonialism and imperialism. The characters come from the planet Mars. They show that world domination does not belong to Earthlings by invading England. In other science fiction works, Mars also very often appeared as the homeland of conquerors, who intended to seize not only the solar system, but the entire universe. However, as time went on and technology developed, the idea of Mars in people's minds became less romanticized than before. In 1964, thanks to the Mariner space probe program, we received an image of the surface of Mars taken from a distance of about 10,000 kilometers. As you can imagine, no signs of living beings were found there. Even after landing probes on Mars, none were discovered. This also changed the patterns by which science fiction was written. Now Mars was no longer a lively planet whose inhabitants had ambitious plans to conquer the world. The situation became the exact opposite. Now Mars is the planet that everyone wants to colonize. For example, we can see a similar plot in the books of Kim Stanley Robinson, who explored the desire to colonize the red planet. From the perspective of events happening on Earth, everything has turned upside down. In modern popular culture, Earthlings now consider themselves all-powerful and are making ambitious plans to conquer the universe. It would seem that the situation with Mars is more or less clear, and there is definitely no point in making up any new speculations. However, to the amazement of most people, a formation was discovered on Mars that looks very much like a human face. Fans' imaginations for wild theories were reignited. In reality, the face only very vaguely resembles a part of the landscape. But if you let your imagination run wild, people want to believe in something fantastic, in something that even slightly matches the plots of Wells's novels and others. And by and large, it doesn't really matter what kind of inhabitants they might have been. Practical ones who built irrigation systems for survival, or beings with a sense of beauty who were drawn to art. But one question still remains unanswered. Where did this strange face-like formation come from? Scientists remained silent for more than 20 years. During this time, the number of conspiracy theories grew at an incredible rate. When satellites gained the ability to take higher quality images, it turned out that these were just ordinary hills. The early image's shadows may have made it look like a face. The unknown is so alluring, and that's why the most unimaginable theories appear because of it. In ancient times, there were many more of them, as advanced technologies didn't exist yet. But the legend of the Martians is a unique part of ancient cultures that reflects people's worldview. And there is still much we don't know in modern times, since we are not all powerful. Who knows? Maybe in hundreds of years, our descendants will read our scientific works with a slight smile, seeing everything we've written as an amusing legend.